Alan, you're kind of yes, no.
Well, of course, total questions. Um, I am versus I am something. So, um, I mean, it seems intellectual to me the way I obviously don't get it, you know, experientially. So intellectually, it makes sense, but that doesn't do much.
Right. Maybe if you can let go of this differentiation of intellectually, experientially.
Okay.
See if you can, see if you can let go of that
Okay.
concept, because
Okay.
that may be an obstacle for you to
Hmm.
appreciate this I am statements. Um, so I'll just start delving into it.
Okay.
I'm going to put you on mute and see if, Mary, did you find it?
No, it's not in my email, and now I have to. I'm trying to come back into the meeting. Except I'm hearing you, so
Yeah.
all right. Maybe it's on some other
Okay.
screen here.
So in the first paragraph, it says the following are I am statements that are truth. Truth meaning that which doesn't change. That's what we mean by truth. That means that this is the best concept or this is true, but truth, that which does not change. So then it says, perhaps you've not fully accepted, lived, or have full faith in these statements. So instead of thinking about intellectual understanding, experiential, or deepening the understanding, we can think more of rather, do I accept these statements? Any ones I feel like a resistance to them, any that I feel I just do not believe in this, and are there any that that I feel like they're true, but I haven't seen it manifest in my life. So that's sort of the background approach we're taking to these I am statements. Says that is okay. It is important, though, that we acknowledge that what we talked about last week, that I am is simply this binding power that whatever you attach after I am increases or appreciates in value. And in value means that we begin to value or believe these I am statements. But we must realize that that if we affirm within us that we can affirm statements at the relative or at the absolute level, at the dualistic level or at the non-dualistic level. So for example, statements such as I am sick. Notice I put AM is small. I am healthy. I am the body. I am angry. I am happy. So look into your experience. Anything that we affirm after the I am, small I am, increases, whether we're aware of it or not. And what that happens over a period of time, if it's something negative, for example, I am not good at math, then what that turns into is, or manifests at the physical level, is not getting good grades at math, math anxiety, math procrastination. I don't want to do math because I am not good at math. So what we're doing is increasing that energy around I am not good at math. Now, Carl Jung called these complexes. And it's what I would say is another way of talking about these I am statements, that they just collect power around one particular issue. I am not good at math. So we have a math complex. And it's just packed with all this energy is, I am not good at it. Okay? So it may take at first an awareness that you may not even have an awareness of all the I am statements that are having a negative effect on your life, on your cognition, on your feelings, on your body-mind mechanism. So you may, after this session, become more aware if you haven't been aware. So I'm not going to tell you that this is something that happens. I want you to look at your own experience and say, is this something that is true? That the more I add on to I am statements at the relative level, it conditions me. And it manifests in my environment, in my body, in my mind, in my intellect. So now if we take the I am statements and shift the focus and capitalize the A and the M, then you can see that the following statements that we're going to talk about will take you from a dualistic experience to a non-dualistic experience. And it'll take you to an absolute level of consciousness, which would be non-duality. Now, this state of consciousness should not be confused with the mystical experience. The state of consciousness means our present level of understanding or our present level of wisdom. So if you think about, again, your own experience, you've learned something from experience, and it has become truth to you in that that knowledge does not go away. So I have consciousness, it's in my consciousness, and I have a conscious understanding, and it happens automatically that if I cross a busy street without looking both ways, danger can happen. It's in my state of consciousness. It's not something that fluctuates. My understanding doesn't go away that, oh, I've lost that knowledge somehow. Whereas in a mystical experience, we get some glimpse of something and then it comes back. But the consciousness that we're talking about through affirming I am statements is similar to the consciousness you have of anything that you learned from experience and is absorbed into your consciousness. And again, look at your own experience regarding this issue. Any questions about that before? Because now we're going to start going into the I am statements. Mary, you have a question?
Well, I'm just very distracted because I can't see anything going on. And I don't know if you're seeing me or...
Yes, we are seeing you.
Okay. Well, I'll just keep listening. I didn't get the email. Something is really odd. Anyway, I didn't get the email. And so I'm writing things down, but I'll just listen.
Okay. So before we start into the I am statements, in Advaita Vedanta, there are a type of person that can be realized, or a person where self-realization has happened through the body-mind mechanism, and they live in the state of these I am statements. The I am statements are truth. So they have both. And there's also people that enlightenment has happened through the body-mind mechanism, where this doesn't happen, where they don't live in the I am statements for whatever reason. Okay? Now that is portrayed in Christianity as the difference between John the Baptist and Christ Jesus. John the Baptist represents somebody who is perhaps self-realized, can even teach it, could perhaps even bring someone else to self-realization, but does not live in the I am statements. Whereas Christ Jesus represents someone who had both. So the first I am statement is simply I am. And as we talked about last week, it is the power, simply the power or the energy that creates identification. It's the identifying power that you have I am, and then anything attaches to it, it identifies with it. And the more affirmation on that I am statement increases, means it becomes part and more manifested in our consciousness. In Advaita Vedanta, we would call it Brahma, that creative energy. We could also call it Sat Chit Ananda, existence, knowledge, and bliss. That primordial first explosion of the manifested universe. We can also call it Atman. We can call it Brahman. We can call it the Father. We can call it divine mind. We can call it Buddha mind. So different religions, Allah, we have talked about this with different wording. Any questions about that so far? So the thing about I am statements is if you don't buy into everything that's been said so far, then it won't have an effect on you. If you don't believe that there's an I am, if you don't believe in there's a pure consciousness, and pure consciousness is at rest, and when it becomes in motion, or it manifests, or it begins even prior to form, that there's this I am, then none of these statements will make any sense to any of us. So I am is when the pure consciousness at rest and has that potentiality to express itself, to manifest itself. The I am is when it first steps outside of itself. It first manifests outside of itself. It prior to identification with form. Simply I am, existence, knowledge, however you want to, that power, that potentiality to go into creation or manifestation. That's what I am is. Mary, you got a question? Sure.
So I am is that pure potentiality.
I am is that pure potentiality is pure subjectivity before it steps out of itself. And then I am is that creative force that goes into form.
So at which point would the statement I am be made?
From the point of when the individual is making that statement. But we're talking about I am prior to that.
Right, so we're talking about a level of I am prior to where I am would be said, or...
Yes. Okay. Good question. So let's take one statement. I am that I am. So I am is that identifying power. The interpretation of I am that I am is Brahman identifies with Atman or itself. I am that I am. Or you can say Atman identifies with Atman, or Brahman identifies with Brahman. The important concept here is that something is identifying with itself, and we'll call that Brahman or Atman. Now, if we understand that, then we can say that in its primordial form, existence is all there is. Beingness is all there is. Consciousness is all there is. And all there is consciousness. It's just another way of saying all there is consciousness, and consciousness is all there is. I am that I am. So in order to believe that, you would have to buy into this concept that the whole universe is made out of some kind of substance, and it's supported by some kind of underlying substratum, which we would call the formless. So I am that I am is talking about the formless, invisible supporting energy of the entire universe, or in Sanskrit called Akshara. Making sense so far? Alan, go ahead.
Would that be the same thing as saying everything is entirely subjective?
No, it would not be. Because when you say everything is well, if you mean by everything is entirely subjective, is that you mean by everyone has an interpretation or point of view? Okay.
No.
Then okay, so I should ask you, what do you mean by everything subjective?
Everything, let's see. Okay, the manifest universe exists entirely in experience. What experience, that all there is experience, or something like that.
No, everything is, everything, if it's an experience, it means it's an experience in duality. There's a subject and object experience something. And we're talking about something beyond experience, beyond personal experience.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take some statements from John, where there's 7 I am statements to help us understand actually the I am statements, the Mahavakyas, the pure consciousness and consciousness of all. Consciousness is all that is stated in Advaita Vedanta. Let's go outside of Advaita Vedanta and look at some of this I am statements to help us understand Advaita Vedanta. So the first statement that we want to talk about is, I am the light of the world. So that's the I am statement. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never be in darkness, but will have the light of life. Okay? So we can go by I am the light of the world, and then the following sentence is like, okay, what do we do with that? And what it means is, how does that manifest in form, in universe, in the world? How does that statement? So light means if we take the definitions of each, is the illuminating aspect. It's simply the illuminating aspect. It's It's what in the Kena Upanishad talks about the mind of the mind, the intellect of the intellect. It is that which allows us to know, not what we know. So, Alan, it's that which allows us to experience, not what we experience. So we say this light, this illuminating aspect, this illuminating, energizing aspect manifests itself at the relative level as wisdom. So you could look at the Bhagavad Gita verses 54 through 72, where he's saying that the Bhagavad Gita, there's a man of a steady state of wisdom. And it talks about, Arjuna asks, how does that man of steady state of wisdom, or another way to phrase it is, how does that wisdom, how does that light or the wisdom manifest itself in a human being or in form? I like that much better than calling it a man or woman of wisdom. Rather than placing the emphasis on wisdom, how does that wisdom manifest? How does that light manifest in and through a human being, in and through form? And we can go at another time and look at those, verses between 54 and 72, but off the bat, I can think of a couple famous verses is that wisdom manifesting through a particular body-mind mechanism, the person will act like a tortoise among the sense objects, meaning that when wisdom is manifesting in and through an individual and they come in contact with a sense object or situation or person that they know could cause them harm, they will withdraw from that situation. So let's say there's a person at work that is very argumentative, or there's a person, a coworker that you just don't get along well with, or they're very, they like to provoke anger, or they're just non-cooperative. It's saying that wisdom manifesting through an individual with that person would know when to withdraw from that person and not get into an argument with that person. And then, so we would call that detachment. Or another situation, wisdom would manifest in and through a person when we know like someone is going through a very painful time and we aren't able to remove their suffering because we can't. We have to watch them go through the suffering. The wisdom would manifest in that we would simply be a loving presence while that is happening, and we would not try to fix it. That's how wisdom, I mean, we could name hundreds of ways this primordial light manifests itself in and through the body as wisdom. And so then we have life equals the expression of being, simply just the expression of being. It expresses itself, manifests itself in and through form or through an individual as vitality and zeal. Because he's talking about life. So life, we say someone's full of life. They're full of energy, zeal, and vitality. So the I am the light of the world. And then when he says, we'll have the light of life. That light manifesting, expressing itself in and through a particular body will have vitality, it will have zeal, it will have life. Now, we also would call that in Advaita Vedanta as the sattvic guna. You know, those who have studied with me know that sattva is called light. One of the definitions of sattva is light and wisdom, purity. That's what it means. So we can also say that the life, so it says at the relative level, the energy or vasanas, sattva guna, it propels us, the individual, into activity. So we'd have activity, we'd have vitality, we would have zeal, but it would be done in backed with wisdom, and it would be the sattvic guna, the sattvic vasana. So life itself comes from source, and we're just saying source is I am. We're saying pure consciousness is I am, so we can see how I am statements work when we affirm the I am statements. So interpretation is, for those who focus on source, pure consciousness, pure subjectivity, or I am, for those who think of God and remember God, that person will have vitality and zeal. They will be in a steady state of wisdom, which is what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. The qualities of wisdom will be expressed as you according to the qualities and characteristics of the individual. So the expression is going to be different in each individual, but the light will be the same. Be a different light bulb, different types of light bulb, different amps of a light bulb, voltages of a light bulb, maybe different colors, yellow, blue, or whatever, but light source I am is the same. So also please refer to Bhagavad Gita verse 13, verses 18 through 12 to see what qualities of wisdom or qualities of a jnani may work in and through you. So for example, I believe the first quality of a jnani is humility. So light working in and through the body-mind mechanism manifests itself as humility. So whether they have the Jesus seminars and whether he actually said this, it's not so much important that he said the exact words or whether he did say this. The important thing is that we look at these statements, and if we interpret them in a non-dual way, it makes sense. And we can feel perhaps this is what he meant when he was saying these I am statements. Any questions so far? Because it's a lot to digest. Ready to go on to the next I am statement? Yeah. All right. So next one is, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. John 6:35. So what does bread represent? Metaphysically, what is it in a non-dual way? It represents universal substance. You know, what does bread do? Back then, bread sustained people, right? So bread is that, he's talking about anything, universal substance, which just sustains us. Doesn't that, it makes sense now, right? So when he's referring to bread, he's referring to universal substance. So source, yes, Alan.
So I have a question about constantly focusing on source, because it seems like doing that isn't paying attention to what's happening around me. And it seems like a duality in the sense of, um, uh,
Yeah.
can I focus on source and also be active or something like that, you know, and tension seems to go back and forth.
That's a good question. So the reason why there's the second part of the I am statement is that you're not trying to focus on, this is really a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. You're not focusing on some abstract concept of source while you're functioning in daily life. You start where you are and you're saying, this is how that source is working in and through me and manifesting in me right now and expressing uniquely through you as a body-mind mechanism. So, for example, you know, any situation, let's say I am love. I am love. And that would manifest in and through the body-mind mechanism, Alan, as friendliness, which is a quality of a bhakta. So you simply are that end result, that manifestation of I am love, and that love working in and through you expresses as friendly. So when you're around people, you're friendly, and that is source. That is how I am, or I am love, or I am friendly, manifests at the relative level.
So if we say, I'm keeping my mind on God, we're saying God as manifest at the moment.
Yes, so you're not going to keep your mind on God because the mind's not going to catch on to some kind of abstract concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very dry and boring. That's not what these I am. I'm glad you brought this up because this is exactly what the I am statements are not. It's not to take us out of reality, of what reality is, what is in front of us. It's how are these I am statements working in and through us and manifesting, taking form. How does this substance take form in our daily life? How does the bread rise? How does this substance rise within us? And so it's in that way, all you have to do is bake it and it will rise. If you put bread in the oven with all the ingredients, it simply spontaneously arises on its own, given the correct conditions. So that's why you have to buy into the beginning of this, the I am statement. Say, do I believe in source? And do I believe that source is a creative source, Brahma, that anything I attach to it will increase, and then eventually it has to take form.
So the best I can do in listening to you is to focus on what's currently happening as a manifestation of source.
Exactly. And when you feel the spontaneous desire to contemplate I am and attach it, or if it spontaneously arises within you to know that anything that I attach after I am increases, if that spontaneous contemplation happens, then you are seeing how the I am works in the process. So what I'm telling you is not to sit with your eyes closed and say, you know, I am love, and I am love.
Mhm.
It's not just a mechanical repetition, although that's better than nothing.
Mhm.
It's saying like, I am alone. It's better than saying I am alone.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I am love. If say, oh, let's say that spontaneously arises in your consciousness, I am love. And so then you say, yes, source, when it manifests itself after I am as love, as this universal, what is love? Love is the power that unifies.
Mhm.
It's a unifying principle.
Mhm.
It's that connecting principle. That's what love is. When you love somebody, you feel connected with them. So we're going back and looking at love is that unifying principle, not just some abstract concept.
Mhm.
And so if that spontaneously arose, you say, wait a minute, yeah, I think that's true. When I feel connected with nature, I guess that's love, or that connecting. So it's not so much about me feeling connected, me having this mystical experience. Rather, that power of love, that connecting energy, that unifying principle is working in and through me right now. And I'm feeling this connection with this person, with nature, with the dog, with animals, with the sky, whatever it is. So we recognize it as this power, this energy that's working in and through us, which is a unifying principle. It's like it's no different than you're you're walking down a building and in the city, and someone's working on a building, and they're rehabbing a building. On the second floor, they're throwing stuff off into a big bin. You know, when they work
Mhm.
rehab, they're throwing out old windows and old doors to a dumpster. And
Right.
so whether you're consciously thinking of it at this, is that gravity is at work. The law of gravity in this situation is at work right now. The law of gravity is manifesting itself right now in this moment when I see people throw objects off the second floor into the dumpster. So similarly, when when love is manifesting, expressing itself, taking form in the universe or in our daily life, it's expressing itself as feeling connected or being friendly.
Mhm.
Just like the law of gravity is at work. You could say it's the law of love at work. That unifying principle that connects all things brings things together or allows us to see that connection. That is the universal law of love at work, manifesting itself. Are you
Yeah.
buying into it a little bit?
I'm trying to make the distinction between this abstract concept of source, which has been what my mind has created out of this teaching, to something real, and focusing on the real thing and not this mental mind thing about
Right.
what source is.
Right. And so all you need to shift your focus is this abstract concept is that I am is energy.
Okay.
It's the Big Bang where it's exploded and all this stuff and is starting to take form and going in this direction and things are forming. Things are taking shape. That's all I am is. All right, so so the interpretation is I am is that consciousness that which supports the universe. He who believes this will have no lack in body, mind, or spirit. There will be abundance and vitality. Now, what I mean by lack, I'm not saying that you're going to start getting more money and start getting more wealth. You will start to see and feel and experience more connection. You'll start to see this I am expressing itself in any particular, whether it's love or wisdom, in your life. And so this sense, what we would say is the sense of separation begins to drop off. When the sense of separation begins to drop off, there is more happiness, there's more joy, there's more connection, there's more vitality, there's more life. And so we call that abundance. There's more peace, it's abundance. It's not just material wealth, although that may happen. So there's another one that we'll talk about next time if you guys decide to come back about this I am stuff. Where he talks about I am the vine. He's just talking about substance as another way. Okay, prana, life force. All right, any other questions before we move on to the next one? Is it starting to make sense? These statements? Okay. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. Now this is very similar, this referring to me. Krishna refers to himself as me a lot during the Bhagavad Gita. But the me he's referring to is not the body-mind mechanism of Krishna. He's referring to the I am. So how do we, like Alan's was talking about, how do we really make this not at the abstract level? So I am the gate. And then, or you could say I am is the gate. And then he's saying, this is what will happen when the understanding of I am is the gate will manifest in and through you into your life. So the gate is the spirited mind, and which is in alignment with truth. And truth is that which never changes. So it says, see above statement about being beingness or bread being universal substance. The gate is may also refer to something we call the 12 powers, or perhaps the 12 openings, which we won't talk about today, but I put it there, plant a little seed into you about thinking about maybe that there might be some faculties other than just the senses, the mind, and the intellect. And if anybody wants to talk to me individually about that, we can talk about that. Saved means that you will find peace. Now, this is interesting. When we think of saved, we think of something else, right? I've been saved. And what he means by saved, though, is that we find peace among temporary conditions of poverty, sickness, sin, which means agitation, and death. In other words, we find peace or serenity, and we're able to have some detachment when things aren't going our way. I was watching a video of Ramesh yesterday, and he was talking about the flow of life. And he was talking about that it's not about changing the flow of life so it works in our favor, but it's about our attitude towards the flow of life. Because the flow of life is always going to be in our favor sometimes and not in our favor. But it's our attitude towards the flow of life. And that's what he means here by saved. What's our attitude by the constant changing ups and downs of the flow of life? We'll be saved from that. And by saved, he means there will be peace. Because our attitude to it has changed. And pasture represents substance in form that can be utilized by the individual. So it means that with this understanding, it's as if you go to pasture and come to that place of peace and ease and relaxation, even when things aren't going your way. It changes our attitude. And it's said in a very poetic way, even from this translation. So the interpretation is, when you're saying, I am the gate, it brings us to the consciousness where one can clearly see what is changing and what never changes. So another way of saying this is, it is referred to in Advaita Vedanta as Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. I'm not making this up. It's an actual phrase for those who have the discrimination to wisdom to see what Ramesh was talking about is the attitude changes in life. The flow of life doesn't change, but our attitude changes. And when our attitude changes, we have what's called Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara, which means Nitya means permanent, Anitya means impermanent, Viveka means discrimination, Vichara means awareness. So we have the awareness and the discrimination to know this is always going to change. And you know what? This doesn't change. So the flow of life is always changing. I'm not going to get attached to that. I got to change my attitude towards that. Or recognize that when my attitude doesn't change, it causes pain and suffering. And so those people who see this, and it's not a mystical experience, it's something, it's the wisdom, this is how the wisdom expresses in and through you as seeing that which changes and that which does not change. That is called Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. And so it's a capacity to discriminate the permanent from the impermanent, to reflect on that which outlives us. That's another way to approach this. So this house is built in 1900. It was here before I was born, and it's going to be here after I was born, after I die. Right? To reflect on that. I do sometimes. I'm serious. I reflect on this house and I'm saying, wow, what was this like in 1900? Decades before I was born, and this house is going to be here decades afterwards. And to reflect on that and to know it, I mean, it's right in front of me. This tree, also more than 100 years old, probably planted right when the house was built. This big old oak tree, right? Big old oak tree. Before I was born, and unless someone decides to cut it down or it's struck by lightning, It's going to be here after I leave. But I am never is born and never leaves. I am never dies. I am is that which created this house. I am is that which made the oak tree. I am exists in the oak tree and sustains it. I am exists in this house and sustains it. And that's what he's saying when you reflect on that which outlives us. It's all around us. And when we begin to have that vision, insight, and wisdom, it changes our perception of things. And so, so houses, trees, works of art, Mona Lisa, I mean, any great music, art, poetry, play outlives us. The good ones outlives us. Now, this is also called the direct path. The direct path, which is the constant attention to the inner awareness of I or I am, recommended by Ramana Maharishi, is the most efficient and direct way of discovering the reality of the I thought. Now, I thought he means, what is the reality, unreality of this I individualized thought? So I can see, Alan, why you would look at this and say, oh, the direct path things, I always got to put my attention on God. And it's no, you put your attention on knowing, believing I am is source, and then see how it manifests in your life, in and through your body. So do you see, like, if the thought arises, you know, the state of California has been there long before you were, and it's going to be there after, and that thought arises, that is I am manifesting itself in and through Alan as Nitya, Anitya, Viveka Vicharya. That thought is manifesting itself. So you're seeing how that formless I am is expressing itself as form in the form of thought. Very spontaneously. Yes.
I always have that experience when I look at the stars, and the star, you know, that they've existed. The time scales and the spaces are so enormous, and the smaller I feel, the better I feel.
Yes.
In relation to that.
Right. So that is, if we were going to do how that works, and what we're talking about, that I am is manifesting itself through wisdom, the seeing of the stars have been there, and that which that outlives you, and it's manifesting itself as humility. When you feel small in this context, it's a good thing, and because you feel good, and that's humility. And there's nothing wrong with like you don't have to think, oh, I can't think about this because it's going to go away. It's expressing in and through you, and you don't have to think about losing it, because you don't lose knowledge of, for example, you don't lose knowledge that you are in California, or if someone's in Oregon, or if someone's in Arizona. I don't lose the knowledge that I'm in Ohio. It's in my consciousness. I think I got amped up there a little bit. Got to tone it down. Got to relax a little bit. So I'm letting it sink in a little bit here. So let's finish, because I feel I've given a lot. Let's finish with, next time we'll start on 6, but there's a sort of like a corollary statement that's also said that refers, that I connected with number 5. And so it says, also consider the following statements. There are many distractions to keep us from finding the one door. That's why the gate, the one door into the inner kingdom, and many voices calling us to that. They will show us as the easy way. But the Christ, or I am, or pure consciousness, or source, or Atman, or Brahman, that's all that Christ means, or Allah, is the only one that appeals to those who are grounded in principle. Now, if you look at this, you go, whoa, what does this mean? What does this mean? So there are many distractions, thoughts. One door, I am. Easy way, trying to be free from the problems of the flow of life. So he's saying there's a lot of people that are looking for the way out and trying to beat the flow of life. The analogy I was thinking about this week about trying to beat the flow of life is a tennis player practicing against the backboard, the wall, and trying to never miss. No matter how good you are, you're eventually going to either miss or you're going to tire out. And so trying to find the easy way is trying to beat the flow of life, beat the backboard, trying to control everything. There's many ways that we try to attempt to do that. When we decide not to do that, when we have this surrender, everything changes. Principle is God eminent in the universe. It's knowing Akshara, it's knowing the substance, it's knowing the bread of life, it's knowing that there's some substratum that doesn't change in this changing flow of life. Is the underlying cause of manifestation, the source from which form proceeds. The formless to the form. I'm not saying anything new, the unmanifested to the manifest. So, although principle is formless, it is that which by all form is produced. Bread of life, substance, it's just stuff, and it's manifest into form. So there are many distractions that lure one's attentions away from I am, Christ, within. There are many reasons to not sit still and awaken this I am, so to speak, the Christ. We could have job, family, responsibilities. There are also many distracting thoughts that tell a person to control life, to manipulate life, and find the way that is free from problems or concerns, or to somehow have peace in daily living. Like, I'm going to find that way. I'm going to try to control the flow of life. So that's what he's saying, that in many ways of calling us that will show us the easy way. I want the easy way. They know without a doubt that source, I am, divine mind, Buddha mind, is eminent in the universe and the great underlying cause of manifestation. the source from which form proceeds. It is that consciousness that allows a person to say, I have a body that is in form, but in truth, I am formless, individualized. So you can say, I am, we can say at the relative level and keep affirming, I'm a body, I'm a body, I'm a body, and feel like we're in this little shell. Or we can say, I am formless, individualized as this body-mind mechanism. It seems subtle, but significant. And it goes back to what Alan was saying. So we're not always trying to live I am in some abstract concept, but we're saying I am formless, individualized. I am source, individualized in this moment. Source has taken on this body in this form. So it's interesting, in the Mahavakyas, great, or what's called great statements in Upanishads, there is no I am that statement. There's that thou art, tat tvam asi. But that tat tvam asi does not mean that I am that. It means that thou art. That thou art is not an I am statement. Aham means I, Brahman asi. Asi, aham Brahman asi means I am Brahman. That is an I am statement. In fact, it is the only I am statement out of the four Mahavakyas. So what I would encourage you to do is when you're thinking I am statements and you feel it's somehow manifesting in what we were talking about as eventually working its way down through I am love, and friendliness is happening right now. At that moment, you could see how is that manifesting in my body? Where is that friendliness? How is it manifesting in my body? Where do I feel it in my body? Because don't we feel anxiety and negative emotions in our body? So look into to see if the opposite can be true. If the opposite is true and you feel a certain place in your body where that friendliness is happening, it's manifesting, and as it's manifesting, you're feeling in the body, you have found the gate. You have found the one door. So, yes, Mary.
What you just said, if you find where friendliness is manifesting in your body, you found the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. So you've experienced, like all of us, everyone's experienced where there's anxiety and we either may have a headache, our temples hurt, there's stress in our, we feel constriction in our chest, our stomach gets upset, if we're nervous or whatever, if we're angry, there's this pulsing in our head. So that friendliness is being manifested in and through you, we could also be aware of where is that, when friendliness is happening, where is that happening in my body? Do I feel in my heart, but as a different sensation? Do I feel lighter in my head instead of the pulsating, angry thoughts? Do I feel a warm flame in my heart? Do I feel my stomach is just calm and, wherever? I don't know where it would manifest in and through you. You would only know. But wherever that place is, then you would say, oh, I've experienced it. I've experienced as friendliness, as this warm feeling in this area. Then all you have to do, it may be simple but not easy, is, oh, my meditation is going to be, I felt that before, to see if I can feel it again. And it's not of the physical body, it's of the subtle body. Obviously there's not like a warm feeling, right here that that would be experienced at the physical level. How could you just have like a warm feeling right here? It's 102 degrees and everything is 98.7. It's a subtle body experience, which those of you studying the subtle body, mind, intellect, pranas, the whole thing, organs of perception and action, they remember that all those exist prior to waking state. For example, vitality and zeal and enthusiasm feels like the prana is coming in, working in and through the whole body as this electrical charge. It feels like you're lit up. So it may not just be one particular place. Yes, Mary.
Always manifest as a subtle body experience?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me unmute you. What were you going to say?
So then could you say that those sattvic experiences are closer to source and more purely reflective of source? I mean, because the other experiences, like anxiety, ultimately also come from source, right?
Right. So the source, I am, is working in and through you as, let's say, love, and then manifesting in the body as friendliness. And that would be sattvic, because it's manifesting itself as feeling connected with other people. And it takes form, it takes shape. The bread is just a substance, and when it rises in with yeast and whatnot, then it takes shape in the form that it's actually manifested in the form of friendliness. And then so what I'm saying is, pay attention, if you can, if the thought arises spontaneously, to pay attention to what does that feel like when friendliness is happening? We tend to focus on the negative emotions and where it feels in the body. Because going back to the beginning, we're always affirming, I am angry and I am this body that is experiencing the anxiety, the anger, the frustration. And because we've done it over and over and over again of I am the body in this negative condition, we very rarely say, oh, I am the body in this positive condition. And then once you say, I am the body in this positive condition, it leads to a deeper awareness of where it happens in the subtle body, because it takes you away from I am the body. So, and it may, again, not just be in one location, because if you say, when I am peace takes form and shape in the body as serenity, calmness, maybe even joy. It's not like, oh, I just feel serenity in my bicep here and the rest of me is hurting. Or joy, serenity, calmness permeates the whole body. And not only, if you pay attention to it, it not only permeates the body, but goes beyond the body. And people pick up on it. Because it goes back to believing. That's why I said you have to buy into this concept of I am is energy. It's that creative force. It's Brahma. It's that which makes a dog bark. Yes, Al.
So if I'm understanding this right, there are two threads that we're talking about. One is positive, this is in duality, positive statements to counteract the negative statements that we habitually make. And then there's the non-dual thing about the I am, which is beyond that stuff.
Right, but think of it as like those old telescopes that you have I am, and then you fold it out and it's a little bit bigger. And so it's I am love, and then you fold it out and it's even bigger, and now you look through it. If it's contracted, there is no expression. You can't see through it. Think back I'm thinking of those, 16th century, ship movies, Master and Commander or something. You take it out and it folds out more, and when it's in, you can't see anything. But so that's I am. It's invisible. It's not known. And then it folds out to I am love, and it's not until it folds out all the way that I am friendly, or friendliness is happening. Yes, Arshdeep.
So Bala, just a very quick story that came to mind. It's from Rabia al-Basri, I think. She was a mystic somewhere in Iraq at some point. So she was finding a needle in a small lamp outside of her house, and this man passes by her. and says, what are you finding? She goes, I'm finding my needle. He goes, where did you lose it? She said, I lost it in the house. So he goes, why are you looking outside if you lost it out inside the house? And she goes, then why are you looking outside? So something like that, because she was a spiritual teacher. So she taught this man like that. So what I'm taking away from this, what you just taught, is that what is beyond may never come into manifest. It's just unknowable. The unknowable will not be known. But what is known here is what needs to be looked at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And knowing that what is here and what needs to be looked at comes from I am. Not looked at as a separate entity, but something that has taken shape, like the telescope, that it has anything that we look at comes from I am. And so it's not what we're looking at. It's knowing that it comes from I am. So what we're looking at is not as important as knowing that whatever we're looking at doesn't have any independent existence. It cannot. It's simply I am in form. And that's all. And that's all that needs to be done. And this is actually a good point, because you cannot look at beyond. Why? Because we are beyond. We are at the as manifested form. There's nothing else that is beyond right now. It is the furthest expression from I am. So we can't look beyond anything more than what's here, because the telescope is all the way out. So when we see that it's the telescope is all the way out, instead of looking at the outside and the telescope, we go, wait a minute, I'm going to look at the source of where it is. Because there's nothing beyond this. Doesn't get any bigger than this, because it's form. It's I am manifested as form. So we wouldn't even say that the universe is expanding, because then we're just saying, oh, well, the form, I mean, we can feel like we're taking the telescope out more and more, but it's all here. It's all expressed. And whether we think it's moving or moving this way or what, the form is here. Can't get any more beyond than what's here. And once we surrender to that, then we say, okay, it's not about this ultimate expression of form. It's about seeing clearly that this form cannot exist without I am. In the I am statements, just do it in a more direct way. That's why it's the direct path. I am, bread. And then what does that mean? I am the substance. We can't have any more substance beyond what's already been manifested. So we look back at I am substance and looking down within the surface and taking our attention to that. And so it's Nitya Viveka Vichara. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we can say, I am is happening. I am is. This doesn't make sense, so we just say, I am. All right, everyone. Namaste. Thank you for coming.